Welcome to the Newsmakers. I'm Rob Cope-Williams, sitting in for Mike Yardley. We've got three people who have just been sworn in as councillors for the Christchurch City: Jamie Gough, Aaron Keown and Glenn Livingstone. Guys, start off with you, Jamie. Just a bit of a background for those who didn't read your bio and not quite sure who you are yet.
Well, I actually had a few people that rang up and said I didn't say enough about my background and my bio, which is, it's always a hard balancing act. You have 150 words and you want to actually, I did, my thought was to tell people what I wanted to do for them as opposed to waffle on about me. Now is my perfect chance. So,
the floor is yours, Jamie.
How long we got? My background really is in private enterprise, so I'm the asset and marketing manager for a property investment and holdings company called Hereford Holdings. I've been there for about the past 4 or 5 years. I'm a board member of the Central City Business Association board. Started off as secretary there and then ended up a fully fledged member. I'm a company director of Gough Holdings Limited, which is Gough, Gough and Hamer, and now City Councillor. So there's four strings to my bow now, and I had 3 prior to that.
Your legs are going to be a wee blur, aren't they?
Yeah, well, do you know what, though? I think staying in private enterprise, this has been my absolute total commitment, is to stay in private enterprise to keep oneself sane. I found for the community board for the last 3 years, coming from private enterprise, coming from a meeting of people that would lose their job if they don't think outside the square, coming from that and going along to local government board, made me a lot more effective, and I've really learned a heck of a lot through private enterprise and my time in that. So I'll stay involved as much as I can. I think it will complement the roles very well, especially at this crucial time too, with rebuilding. Exactly.
Another one of the young guns, Aaron.
Hey, thanks, Rob. Thanks for the young gun title. I'll take that for now. Yeah, and we got sworn in this morning. Could be sworn out pretty soon too if we carry on with the way we have in the past. I've known Jamie for a number of years and just really met Glenn more recently, but there's certainly a new flavour at the table, and it's really positive to see. Obviously, Tim Carter and Jimmy Chen are the other 2 newbies, and we all get on really well. So,
a wee bit more about your background.
Okay, my background. Well, where do you start? I'm born and bred in Christchurch. I'm married now, got 2 children. Didn't grow up on the best side of town. I grew up in Woolston and went to Bromley Primary and Linwood Intermediate, so I'm picking I'm probably the first councillor ever out of those schools. I run a small business here. I've worked in entertainment for quite a lot of years. I was originally a hairdresser by trade and did a couple of years in the building industry and have laid poo pipes, so the replacement of those at the moment, I understand how that all works. And I got a murder mystery dinner theatre restaurant these days, and I will stay with my hand in private enterprise, like Jamie said, because it keeps you real, and those real bills that people have to deal with, businesses and households, are real, and the numbers you get in council aren't. And I think that's been one of the problems of past councils, is that they're really out of touch with the real world. You know, you can't go to your boss and say, oh, my living expenses have gone up, just increase my salary. Would like to, but the council does. They just go, I'll put the rates up. Yes, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Glenn, your background.
Thanks, Rob. I've been a Presbyterian minister for over 21 years. Began when I was Jamie's age, and so it's been quite a journey. I'm actually from Palmerston North originally, but my wife is from here, Anthea, and I did go to school here when I was a child too. We had a few moves around the place, including Wellington as well. So this is familiar territory for me.
But you're very much a people person, obviously, with your background.
Yep, just being out of the community.
Gentlemen, we've got a new Deputy Mayor, Nari Button. What are your thoughts?
Look, I think Nari's great. I voted for her. 10 of the councillors did, 4 didn't. It was quite unusual. I think in the past we've seen councils have an unwritten agreement of who the deputy mayor would be. Obviously it's a day today, the only day in a council meeting for the next 3 years, where it's really about simple procedure, about family and the whole celebration of the day. There's plenty of time for fighting and voting for and against things, and there'll be some robust debate. However, I think and all credit, I think, actually to the 2021 group of councillors that were here. They said, look, we really want this to be out in the open. There's a couple of contenders here. Chrissy wanted to stand for Deputy Mayor, and the other person that wanted to stand was obviously Nari Button. And they said, look, let's just put it on the table this time around. And you know, I wasn't sure how that would go, and ultimately now that it's over, I'm really comfortable with it. I was really impressed how gracious Chrissy was when she lost. The result didn't go in her favour, and Nairi obviously won and is now Deputy Mayor, but she handled it very well, and it was totally out in the open, and I think that's quite a good feeling for the next 3 years for council.
Aaron?
Yeah, I'm fine with it. Obviously, I've been on the same community board with Nairi for the last 3 years, so I've got to know her well and can pretty much trust Nairi. Like anyone that you'll ever work with, you won't agree totally on policy, but that's cool. She'll generally tell you where she stands. The reason I voted for Nairi is I asked Bob the question. It's the Deputy Mayor. It's not deputy to anyone else. The person who's Deputy Mayor has to cover the Mayor and have the Mayor's back. And so I put it out there at the meeting and said, look, Bob, I think this should be your decision. Who would you like as Deputy Mayor? And he contacted each person and was open and honest and said who he wanted. So that had an influence, and I think that's important because it's his deputy, no one else's.
Glenn?
Yeah, I wanted Chrissy, and you know, quite happy to accept the outcome. And Nairi and I know one another. Chrissy and Nairi, you know, hugged after the result, and I think the main thing was the openness. So just to have that in the open and for the community to see that, that's really what mattered.
I'm going to talk a wee bit about party politics and things later in the programme and being a united force, but openness is obviously something that has to be addressed by this council.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, we've got an opportunity now, and I don't think we can afford not to go with committees. That's going to be a serious question that will be asked next week when councillors go away for a couple of days and nut out a whole lot of things, one of which will be committees, and I think that's probably the most important one. In my view, look, there's a lot of things that are sometimes, whether they're right or wrong, the perception is reality. There is a perception issue with openness and transparency, and I actually think that that although perception makes something reality, I think that from being an observer from the community board for the last 3 years, there are a lot of decisions that should have been out in the open that I have believed need to be the case. We operate committees at community board level, and I find them very effective. I think it forces transparency, it forces better democracy. Whether some people think that it's right or wrong, well, that's their prerogative. Look, I've always got an open mind to everything. I never close myself off completely, but I'm certainly leaning towards committees, and I think that'll be a step in the right direction of a more open council. And ultimately, we're here for the people that put us in here. The people of Christchurch, they're my boss, and this is why we're all here. We're working for them.
After the break, I'll be asking Aaron and Glenn the same question about openness. Back shortly.